Hello there, my friend. Welcome to another episode of Talk Music Talk with Boyce. I am Boyce, and this is my podcast that you are listening to. Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, established and emerging singers, singer-songwriters, music therapists, and music journalists. And on this special episode 150th, Public Speaking. That's the name of the band, the solo project of Jason Anthony Harris. He is a Brooklyn-based singer and musician, and I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate this momentous occasion by having him on the show, celebrating this way, because when I go into a conversation, I try to release any preconceived notions of what's going to happen in the interview or of the person that I'm interviewing. My intention is just to have a great conversation and to be open to what can happen. And I believe in this interview with Jason that everything just clicked. And if people ask me, Boyce, where's a good place to start if they have not ever listened to the show? This will be on that list of conversations. This is actually my second time having Jason on the show. Back in August, I interviewed him on episode number 95. It was with him and his label mate, Ruben Sendo Acosta. They have a label together called Floordoor Records. You should also check out Ruben's music. He has a project called A Bunch of Dead People. At the time, Jason had an album that was coming out. It was called Caress Redact. And he is back with a new album called Grace Upon Grace. Another wonderful album. It is out October 5th. You can pre-order it now on Bandcamp. On October 4th, the night before, he will be celebrating the release with a release party in Brooklyn at Come On Everybody. So you should go if you are in Brooklyn, in the area. This is a wide-ranging conversation. We talk about politics, religion, sexuality. We talk about Jason's music, Grace Upon Grace, and past projects, and all that good stuff. Jason is intelligent and talented, and this is a wonderful conversation. I am so excited to share it with you. After we talk, you will hear two songs from Grace Upon Grace. The first single, Backbone, and then Trespass, which features Sophie Chernin from Madam West. Here it is, this extra long, extra wonderful conversation. 150 with Public Speaking, Jason Anthony Harris on Talk Music Talk. Enjoy. Here's the thing. What made you decide to go from more experimental to song-based, but elements of experimental with the Caress Redact? Would that be when you started that?
No.
Moving in that direction?
I think for me, it started as early as my first public speaking record, which was Blanton Ravine. But I still had songs here and there that were just purely instrumental songs, or songs where I would allow a lot of time for instrumental passages and stuff, and more noise. I guess it's gotten more and more song-based as I've fallen in love with kind of writing songs and wanting to write better, stronger songs. So things get reined in a bit and more concise. And I take those ideas that I have and I love, and I want to, like a large canvas abstract painting, and I kind of want to cut my favorite parts out of them and then arrange them into blocks that, make sense together in time and in space. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of a gradual process to where now with this last release, the newest release, Grace Upon Grace, is very, very focused on the songs and the structure of the songs, with very little in the way of noodling or getting away from that. Yeah. Everything is essential to the song, and it's very lyric centric, and content centric too. And also these songs all have a strong relationship to each other thematically, but also the sound of them, I think, which was very intentional. So yeah, it's just been this process of just developing this relationship to words and to storytelling. I think there's been certain people that I've discovered or rediscovered or gotten into. Like Randy Newman is one of the most important songwriters for me. It really made me feel like, all right, like more can be done than you can conventionally say in a song, and that you can approach it from so many different angles and so many different character perspectives. And it doesn't have to be a story, but it can be a story.
Okay.
It can be a snapshot, you know. Him being such a master of what he does was something that really kind of changed the way I thought about songwriting.
And that you could have characters in the songs and not just talk about you.
Right.
Or you through a character.
Yes, that I could be singing from the perspective of a character and reflecting on them, but still singing from their point of view.
Okay.
No.
So I'm sorry.
And trying to understand what they, you know, how they feel about the situation, even if it's deplorable, or you know, trying to explore those things, which is a lot of my songwriting.
Did it start from composition, and these are actual songs in the production afterwards, or were you thinking in tandem?
These songs themselves, the newest songs,
the newest ones.
They started from piano compositions that I had, that I was working with for a while. I think most of these did. They began with piano compositions that I felt very insecure about because they were so simple. The ideas were so simple, and I felt insecure about my piano playing. And I kind of got away from piano for a little bit. And then when I started to think about the new record this time, before anything happened with it, I heard in my head like very minimalist piano and very slow rhythms with a lot of space. And so I kind of went back to those compositions and felt like, oh, well, some of this can actually work in this context perfectly, you know. And the intention is to be minimalist, to pull out, you know, augmentation and decoration and things. So yeah. Probably more than half of them were from that period of songwriting a couple of years ago with piano, where I didn't really have vocals for them.
Okay. So these songs started on before Caress Redact?
Yeah, several of them did. A couple of them, I don't know if I'm getting the numbers right or not, but you know, these are 5 songs. So 3 out of the 5, at least, I would say were. And some of them are combinations of songs, you know, where combinations of compositions that amounted to a song, or that I changed the key of something so that it could be subsumed into another song.
Does that feel like it gives you a more like actual song if you're sitting at the piano composing?
Does it? I'm sorry.
To make it like an actual song that can stand, like whether it has the electronic background to it or any scene, these are actual songs.
Yes. Yeah. And as far as like sometimes people ask me, you know, how important is that to you if you can play it outside of that? It's not necessarily important to me. It's just kind of the way that I work most of the time. Like even with very electronic, very noisy songs that I have, during the process of writing them, writing the vocals for them, writing the structure for them, I usually play them on piano and sing along and write lyrics. I play them on guitar, you know, and I kind of sing them walking down the street too or whatever. But I usually play them on a few instruments, and then before my table of electronics, you know, at shows or in the studio when I'm rehearsing. So they just become like malleable to these different instruments.
Okay.
So just by virtue of all of that, having that all around me and being a multi-instrumentalist, like makes them really transferable to a lot of different instruments, you know. But there are pop songs in the, you know, I mean, in the wide sense, the broad sense that I think of pop songs. So they, you know, they are simple. You know, they can be played on simple instruments in a simple way, you know. Ideally, they can be played with me just clapping my hands for the rhythm and singing them to you, you know. They should be able to work that way as well.
Yeah, and they do.
Yeah.
And they do. Because as we've discussed before, other interview, you love pop.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you love pop.
I do. I very much love
I've
pop.
interviewed people where it's there's kind of the fear I won't be seen as such a serious artist if I'm too pop.
No,
do you ever have that?
No, not at all. I write the music that I write, and for me, it's a combination of all the many, many different things I love that it's a really juxtaposition in my mind that somehow works through me, you know. The things that I love are very broad. They range from like Yes albums, like, you know, early Yes albums, those classic albums that are fucking insane. I love them. I was just listening to them to Relayer the other night with a friend, and we were just like nerding out on this insanely complex but really groovy music. And that too, I listen to a lot of classical music. Some of it is 20th century classical, but most of it is very like romantic era, you know, to Baroque era music like Bach and Vivaldi to, you know, Schumann and Brahms and, you know, people like this. And I listen to minimalist composers of the 20th century, like Steve Reich, for instance, or, you know, and then all the pop music that I love as well, and all the soul music that I love. And Coltrane is one of my favorite things in the entire world, you know. So there's all these things that really shouldn't make sense together. And if you really tried to put them into something, like consciously, if you tried to put all those things together into a song, it would be fucking horrible, you know. But I just try to, you know, write what I hear works for me, for whatever whatever situation that I'm writing that song for, you know. It's just kind of trusting yourself to, this works, I like this. You know, you are the first listener that you have when you're writing something. Yeah. So I'm trusting the inner listener in my head, you know. And I know that I'm not going to make the music like, I'm not going to make progressive rock music. That's not really what I do. I know that I'm not making experimental jazz music or anything like that. It's not within my skill set, but it's also not within my desire. Yeah. You know, I'm not an instrumentalist. I'm not really a composer as much as I am just a songwriter. And for me, it's about the song and the joy of singing songs, even when they're painful. And a piano or a guitar or a group of guitar pedals and, you know, buttons and knobs and all that shit is just a kind of vehicle for being able to sing those songs. Yeah. And you do this as, or at least live, one man band. Yeah, most of the time. Yeah. Sometimes I have a saxophonist play with me who plays on my records, Johnny Butler. He just released a great record too called Hyperviolet. Sometimes he'll play with me live, or sometimes a friend of mine, brilliant pianist, Jonathan Wood Vincent will play with me, or Gina Andara. She plays with the Wordless Music Orchestra. They do all those insanely wonderful shows. She's a violist. Sometimes she plays with me. Sometimes Storm plays violin with me. But most of the time I play alone. Yes. So the songs are made so that they can work alone. You know? Okay. Yeah. So did that come about out of necessity? Like, or it's easier to do it on your own than to have a band? Yeah, because I played in a couple bands before that. It came about out of my personality and learning that, like, this is how I work ideally. By being able to control everything, because I'm a fucking control freak, you know. Not having to deal with other people and what they want to play, you know. Not having to make it like some bureaucracy of decisions, you know. So I like very repetitive sounds. I like repetitive rhythms. So all of this technology makes that possible for me. And the focus is the voice at the end, you know. And the songs, when they're played live, often become a little more stripped down, sometimes a lot more stripped down. It depends on the recordings I've made. but it allows me to really put the voice at the forefront, to make that the focus. And it's also, you played in bands before, right?
I've done a few shows on my own.
Yeah,
music,
it's a hell of a lot easier to hear yourself. I'll tell
really?
you that too. Because either you leave space for your voice within what you're making,
Okay.
Or there's just less going on.
Yeah.
So you can really, be very intimate with yourself in a way, and the way you're communicating to the listener, because you can monitor yourself a lot more closely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
And talk about what equipment you use live, and how did you decide on that particular set of gear?
I think when I first started out, I was doing a lot of just improvisation with my pedals, where I would have no song at all, and I was just improvising kind of songs. They always came out like songs, and they would have word-like sounds, and they were very percussive and very repetitive, extremely repetitive. And it came about because I had a delay pedal that had a loop function on it. So I started using that, and I had a pitch shifter pedal that I started using for different vocal effects. And I got another delay pedal that was out of sync with that delay pedal. So I had two to play that were out of sync with each other. So that made things a bit interesting. And I just kind of started building from there. And not by won't it be fun to, this is a really cool thing. It's more like, what can this do for me? What problem do I need solved?
Okay.
In the simplest way possible. So I use a lot of just cheap, Boss pedals and stuff that just kind of do one thing, because they do it. It's a simple, procedure, and it's like having another pair of scissors, nearby.
Okay.
Or another size paper or something, at hand. So I really don't acquire new equipment much at all. I eventually got a microKORG, so that was good for me to start putting some, more easily polyphonic tones into what I was doing instead of slowly building them. And I started embracing more bass elements with that too. And the last thing I got, which kind of is very relevant for this record, was just a small MPX sampler, which is a very cheap, straightforward sampler that you can load your own samples into.
Okay.
So I started making, instead of, a lot of people with loop pedals, you'll now they're doing the shaker, now they're doing the this, now they're doing that,
Yeah.
So I made my own samples. By a lot of it was breaking little things around the house, or crunching up or tearing things, like breaking video cassettes and things like this, dropping them into pans, and then cutting up those sounds and processing them electronically, and then putting them into my MPX, which has about 8 sounds at once.
And then you can trigger.
And putting putting a kick sound there too, or something else that I might have processed, from another source. Something there so that it's in the vocabulary of a drum set. So you have a low sound, you have a high, it's somewhat in that vocabulary. But being able to use that to quickly tap and write rhythms in that way, instead of arranging them on a grid on a computer, or laying them down one element at a time.
Okay.
So that's how several of these songs were written.
Outside of all of the takes to be in a band, do you like being on stage by yourself?
Yes, I do. Yes. I like it very much. I don't have a problem with being on stage. It's before and after.
Okay.
And sometimes if you're touring, driving to, after the show, maybe, finding a place to crash or things like that. It's all the detritus around performing.
Okay.
The performance itself is fine.
It's fine.
Waiting around to perform, all of that.
Was it butterflies and
No, it's just irritating. Like I'm in this place, I sometimes have to listen to music I don't want to listen to. Yeah. I have to be social. You have to be polite to the other bands and stuff, and the other people who are around, the people who came out to the show, stuff like that. You have to be available to people. They want to talk to you about your music after you've played. They may want to buy your records or whatever. So you have to be very, very available.
Yeah.
And I am a very private person. So I find that part of it very taxing. Okay. The actual being on stage, the playing, and opening up emotionally can be a little draining, but I can do it. I can get through it. And most of the time I enjoy it in some way.
Okay.
It's fulfilling on some level, But at the end of the day, really, writing songs is more fulfilling. Okay. Writing and recording them.
Got it.
So I feel like there will be a day when I will just, hide away somewhere. I'll just be recording songs. And who knows if anyone will get to listen to them or not, but that's what I'll do. Yeah. Performing is not a necessity, but I do enjoy it for now.
Okay.
And it's a different beast than writing. Yeah, it's a mysterious thing.
Mm-hmm. Is there a battle between, you say you're a private person, but then in your songs you are revealing in some ways? Sometimes
I am, yeah. It depends. In this record, I don't think I'm revealing so much. The only thing I guess I would be revealing is the willingness to put oneself in the shoes or the mind of someone that is, that you would judge as being a bad person or a destructive person or a hateful person or, trying to get inside or a very afraid person who's making bad decisions because of their fear, so maybe that reveals something about me that I put myself in those positions, and I can see how people can get there emotionally, mentally, intellectually, or I try to see how they can get there. I try to empathize even with their really, some really awful feelings and viewpoints. Because I find it fascinating, to get outside of yourself and to try to understand that, especially something that may be repellent to you. For me, something that's repellent to me, it's I want to understand, why am I repelled by that? What is that? And to try to get within it, somewhat. But here and there, I have written about personal things, like in Caress Redact, in the record before that as well, Build Another Boat. I've written songs that have reflected on me personally, my relationship with my parents, occasionally my relationship to the ones my romantic relationship. But I feel like maybe because those songs are surrounded by a lot of other songs that are character songs that are not about me. Yeah. By proximity, they become not just about me specifically. They become changed, and I'm kind of utilizing my own feelings for that song. Okay. So even if it was written about me, it kind of becomes a character of me, Yeah. So it's not that difficult, really.
Okay, so you don't feel like Bear or anything being on stage talking about?
I don't. I don't know why that is.
Have you always been comfortable on stage performing?
In the beginning, it was difficult, but for anyone, my first shows ever in front of people were in New York. It was with my first band that I had when I came here. And we played our first show at this small bar in Brooklyn. It's no longer around, I don't think, called Sputnik. And I was like a deer in the headlights. I was glad I had my guitar to hold and strum and just stand there. People were like, "Oh, you have kind of a David Byrne thing going." I was like, "Well, that's because I'm actually frightened. I'm not making the character of a paranoid person." And then our second show that we ever played, so that I ever played in front of anyone, was at CBGB's. When they were kind of they were going to close in a few weeks, and a lot of people were playing there, and my band played there. And it was a huge crowd of people. I didn't know a lot of them. And again, it was fucking terrifying, but I felt like it was a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And each time I would do it, it would be a little bit easier. But also it was within the context of, a group. So you have your friends there who are playing your songs. I was the songwriter, but they're there playing with you.
Yeah.
You're in it together. So you have that like camaraderie. So at the very least, it's us against the audience,
Yeah.
We're together. We like these songs, so fuck you, And then I had kind of a scary moment. I don't know if it was maybe around 2007 or so when I played my first show, 2008 perhaps, acoustically. Just me, alone, just with a guitar and my voice. I did that for, it was my ex-girlfriend, it was her birthday party, and she was always a fan of my singing, and so she wanted me to play it, and I was starting to write these songs alone. I didn't have a band yet. I thought I was going to have a band, and so I played it. It was Glasslands when they were still around, and it was scary, It was very scary just to be responsible for everything that's happening. Yeah. And no loop pedal, so everything in real time, that's happening. But it was the same thing. It was just, it took some time to get used to. And each show, it got a little easier. And I feel like the more you have a mastery of whatever your instrument is, and for me, playing live, my instrument is the, cachet of guitar pedals I use. So I have a comfort level with those that I can articulate what I want when I want. I know how they work, I've been playing with them for a few years now. So that's my instrument. So since I have a control of that, and I'm playing songs, it's not scary, no. Yeah.
And with the new album, Grace Upon Grace, which is a great title.
Thank you.
What are these?
It's taken from the Bible, actually.
Okay.
I am a staunch atheist, but I have a great fascination with Christianity, and especially with the Bible, and the next thing I'm reading is I was already reading bits of the Bible here and there over the years, and then increasingly for this album too. And the next thing I'm reading is this large, oh my God, it's so fucking heavy. I just got it in the mail and I was so excited about it, but it's very heavy. It is both physically and, it is annotated Bible. It's the Old Testament. It's the 5 books of Moses. Okay. And I'm so fucking excited to
now,
read it.
As a staunch atheist, what are you looking for when you read Christianity?
I'm fascinated by the mythology of it. For me, what I see as the mythology of it. For me, it's like reading Shakespeare. It's like reading something that really reflects on humans and how they are building meaning, how they're looking for meaning, and how they're defining themselves in a world without any, really. Yeah. As far as I see it. And those stories that have developed over time, that have been written by people about people, and trying to find this purpose, and the way that it has informed entire, Western civilization, and all around the fucking world. I mean, it's, the dominant religion, really. Well, I don't know, I may be wrong on the numbers there, but as far as the political power of, of countries who have a Christian background,
And how did you become a staunch atheist?
Is
that your background?
Yes.
Okay.
I just...
is your parents Christian and you grew up...
They kind of are.
In opposition to that?
They kind of are. I guess as they get older, I think they are a little more, but they never talked about it or anything. Okay. There was no church. Okay. There was none of that. That was not in the conversation at all. I was kind of left to be alone. They were kind of doing their own things when I was young, so that they weren't really setting up a structure of belief for me in any way. So I just kind of realized, I was reading something about like Somerset Maugham or something. And he was talking about kind of realizing that he was an atheist. And I was thinking, that's what I am. I guess that's sort of that makes sense. All right. I don't have that belief or faith, you know, and nor do I look for it. So I guess that's what I am.
Okay.
You know, so I had to kind of realize that's what it was, you know.
And how is it being in a world where most people aren't atheists or they have a negative view of atheism?
I don't know. Well, you know, I mean, we live in New York City. So for me, I'm really sheltered from any stigmas that may come with that, you know. And when I go home to Florida, where I'm from, no one I know is really religious in any way.
Okay.
You know, I've had some conversations with my father or my mother where they kind of like, I had to make them realize, like, you know, I'm not a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm an atheist. And they kind of struggle with understanding that, you know. But it's fine. I don't think they feel like, you know, I'm going to be damned to hell or whatever. You know, they're not strongly religious people in any way at all. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just very sheltered from that stigma.
Yeah.
You know, I know we've never had, you know, we don't have any politicians who are atheists. We've never had a president who is atheist. We probably
would not.
Probably never will.
Stand a chance. Yeah.
A lot of people think Obama is and kind of just sort of like plays the game because, you know, to be a politician, you kind of have to do that. Some people think that, and that could be said about other American politicians throughout history too. But they still,
you can't be an atheist and you have to be married.
God bless America, and you got to be married to someone of the opposite sex. Well, you got to be married to a woman because we haven't had a woman president. So, maybe they'd be okay with a lesbian president. I don't know, since our chauvinistic society would.
That would be hot.
If it's hot for straight white men, then maybe that would work. But I don't know. It's hard for me to answer that because I'm not where I live, and even the people in my family, it's not an issue.
Okay. Was it ever an issue within yourself that you don't fit in with what general society says?
I guess just generally it is, and I don't put any blame on myself. It's just, it makes me feel kind of ostracized in a way, in an emotional way. Yeah. But then I'm fascinated by that, by like all these people around the world with, you know, different religions and different faiths who do believe certain things, you know, or in certain texts. I think it's fascinating as fuck. But I also feel like it's hard as fuck for me to understand and believe it. It's like for a Christian to try to understand probably like what it is to be a Satanist, or for, you know, them to try to understand what it is to like what it was to be someone in ancient Greece or something, you know, worshiping pagan gods. Like it's that inexplicable to me. It really is, especially where we are in history. Just intellectually and scientifically, it's fascinating to me.
So, okay, I'm curious about this. How do you, so many people go to Christianity, or even if they're not Christians, they, for faith or in troubling times, they can look to this higher power. Do you ever, like, in troubling times, what provides you comfort?
I'm a very depressive person. You know, and it's true. I actually suffer from depression. I had a couple of I had a couple of major anxiety attacks earlier this year for the first time ever. And so I started. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. So I'm very, so I became medicated for the first time, which I never wanted to do. I grew up around a lot of drug abuse. Yes. It was kind of everywhere. And so much so that it made me like kind of square in a way. I would still drink a lot, but like at parties, people would offer me weed and stuff. And just my connotations for people who smoked were just all these fucking assholes and idiots that I grew up around. And so I didn't even smoke weed, like I hardly ever do still, but I didn't even do it recreationally at a party until I was like fucking 29 or something like this, you know. just a few years ago. So I was finally like, after the physical trauma, and internal trauma that is an anxiety attack, which came out of nowhere, just a lifetime of anxiety. So not nowhere, but it was building to that my whole life. But there was no incident that triggered it, which was also scary. That it just fucking
can't point to
happens.
something.
Yeah, everything's going fine, and just inside, I'm just anxious and anxious as shit. So I'm on some anti-anxiety medication and antidepressants, and it's been working for me.
Okay,
it's been working for me really well. I have a good therapist, and so that helps a little. The meditation helps. I was always also turned off by meditation because of the spiritual connotation, like the spiritual stuff. I thought it had to be something spiritual. And then I learned, no, there's a kind of meditation you can do that's just very self-reflective. Yeah. And it's just about taking control of yourself and calming down and not really taking control as letting go, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Being able to just focus on just focusing on your breathing and just kind of letting go of yourself. And focusing on the moment, So that helped a lot. But as far as what helps me in really, difficult times, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a cliche, but I would just say, music, really. Yeah. It's music for me. It's music and art, too, in general. I have a deep connection to certain painters, and to certain filmmakers as well, and definitely to a lot of musicians. I think art in general, which kind of ennobles people and gives them and me some chance at expression, and kind of building a kind of meaning. Yeah, that being there helps me to go on. And I think if I didn't make music, I would have to have something else in my, some other ammunition there, or something else in my fucking utility belt to use against depression, something else creative. Because honestly, it's kept me from killing myself, really. Without it, I don't know. If I had nothing in place of it, if I wasn't a painter or whatever the hell else, a fucking dancer or choreographer or something, I can't imagine going on. Really. Okay. It's that much a part of just my everyday life, my walking down the street and what I'm thinking about. It's they're almost like math equations that I have in my head all the time that I'm working on, and that I'm taking the world in and trying to use it sometimes, sometimes too aggressively. I think I need to let go a bit. But I want to use it in the service of what I want to create, But it's, for me, that is the will to keep living. So that's what keeps me going. Okay, is that if I didn't have that, I don't know. Yeah, maybe I would be a Southern Baptist if it wasn't for music. I don't know. Maybe I will have found God, or I would have,
made yourself.
Maybe I'd be Muslim or something. I don't know. Because I would probably try to find something in lieu of that. Yeah. So I don't want to say it is my religion, but in some way, I don't know. Yeah.
Does you feel like a cloud is gone, or what is the difference now with the meditation and medication as opposed to this, say, last year?
It's like I have kind of a net there to catch me, a little bit of support. My lows are less low, and I feel like there's something there. It's almost like I can feel that. Part of it's a placebo effect, I'm sure, that I know there's something there to catch me. But sometimes I feel like it's almost a chemical thing that I can monitor. Okay. That there is something there supporting me and not allowing me to go down deep into that kind of despair that I very easily fall into. So it's like a support system, really, for me. And then I have the therapy, which helps a lot. So I have someone to like speak out loud and voice those really ridiculous thoughts or self-destructive thoughts. And just hearing yourself say them sometimes is very, very helpful. Especially when you hear yourself saying them week after week after week after week. You're like, I'm getting sick of therapy. It's so repetitive. And then you realize, oh, I am the repetitive thing here in therapy. Like, I need to change these things. And then having the tools of meditation so that I can step away, from myself and from a situation when I feel I'm getting too anxious or something. So I just feel like I have more tools to kind of keep going, and be more positive, just positive enough to kind of want to get out of the bed in the morning and want to do something. And, my God is productivity. That's my, that's what I want to do all the time. I always want to be focused on, rather, is creating something. Okay. I want to be making something in the process of making something. In the process.
Okay.
Always, so I don't know what connection I was making to that. I always want to be in the process of something so that when I'm not, like when I finish something, it's a real dangerous place for me to be. Because I'm like, fuck, what do I do? Now I have to like sell this thing. I have to I have to promote this thing. I have to play these songs or whatever. I have to. And what I've realized more and more with the completion of each song and with each group of songs and album is that the quicker I can get my mind onto something new, even if it's in the very beginning stages of something, like a rhythm, like what kind of rhythms I want to work with or something. If I start focusing on what I want to hear, and music for me is making what I want to hear, the sooner I can get onto that, the better it is for me. I can fall into the rhythm of life, and have like a reason.
So is this a dangerous time?
I sound like a very desperate person right now, but
don't.
But this is what I've found. This is a structure I've kind of made for myself, so that I want to keep living. And I don't mean that in a morbid way. It's just we all look for the things that will keep us going. And I'm sure extremely religious people do too. They may have God and all, but also in their life, you have to find something, whether it's devoting all of your time to God and the church, but you have to do something, you wake up every day, you have to get up, you have to do something, you have to go somewhere or, otherwise, Well,
I think it's commendable that you took these steps to make a change. I mean, those are a lot of steps that you did just this year.
Yeah. Well, I started going to therapy last year.
Okay.
So I started that because I was starting to, the anxiety was getting a lot worse.
Okay.
And just small things were setting it off. So I started that. And that's why I was really I was disappointed that those anxiety attacks happened. But I had always resisted the medication, And friends of mine who are depressed and have been on medication for years have told me, Jason, you need to, you don't understand. It's not going to change who you are.
Yeah.
It's just going to help you
to not
want to kill yourself all of the time. And that's exactly it. I want to kill myself a hell of a lot less than I did before. And I don't dwell on it as much, here and there, I sink back into these things, but it's been very, very helpful for me just to go on living my life.
Have people noticed the difference in your life?
I think they
about
have, especially at the beginning, because it depends on the medication you're on. You can be kind of, almost manic at the beginning. And I'm not a manic depressive or anything, but just it kind of mirrors that when your brain is reacting to this, holy shit, I'm elated and this, that deep depression is gone. I'm not just pissed off and unhappy. I have energy, and you're just on the top of the fucking
hell
world.
Is this person?
Yeah. So people kind of, they noticed around me. People noticed. But over time, it levels out.
Yeah.
You know,
I had
it's not that I wasn't
tiredness.
myself, but what's that?
I had extreme tiredness.
Did you?
Oh, God, yeah.
Well-
I'd go to shows and I'd be standing in show, like falling asleep standing up.
With antidepressants?
Yeah.
Did you also do an anxiety or just antidepressant?
What is it? Episca? Oh, God, I forget the name of it. It's supposed to be for anxiety and depression.
Oh, it does both?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I take one for each.
Okay.
So my problem initially was, and this is a danger if you go on these things, is that I went on anti-anxiety medication, and at the same time that I went on the antidepressant. I went on the anti-anxiety medication because I was having heart palpitations and, anxiety attacks that I needed something to control this. So I didn't have a heart attack, which you can actually do. You can scare yourself into having a heart attack. It's very frightening. So they immediately gave me that. But that works instantly. The antidepressive, however, takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes 3 to 6 weeks ish. So at first, the energy level was taken away without the antidepressives kicking in.
Okay.
So I was like a fucking zombie
Yeah.
for like a few weeks, and it was getting dangerous. I was like, I had no will to do fucking anything, to be around anyone, to talk to anyone. I came into my therapist's office one day and she could tell that things were very dangerous. And she said, like, you need to lessen the anti-anxiety. Like, you need to cut that in half. And this is what's happening to you. And like, we can talk about your feelings and stuff, and your emotions and stuff. Those are real, but this is the reason this is happening to you, which helped,
Okay.
You don't completely believe it when they say, the chemicals, because the feelings are still very real and they're feelings I've had all my life. They're just made deeper and more visceral. So we cut that in half, and then a week or two later, the antidepressives started to kick in, so I was able to find that balance.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how has this affected your music, or has it?
Yeah, one would not think it has at all, because if you listen to the music, it's still all in minor keys, and yeah, it's still pretty dark material. So I don't think, happily, I don't think it has affected my music, which I didn't want it to do. I mean, for me, I don't want to write like this sort of like
sunshine.
happy song. Occasionally I like listening to something like that, but making it for me is there's no joy in that. There's no enjoyment in constructing that. And I think it's very, very challenging to write a song about happiness or love that says something new or that is like, that can really connect with someone,
Yeah.
Like it's easier to connect with someone. And for me to connect with parts of myself, that when the song is a bit more depressing is about things that do make you uncomfortable, or scared or hateful or, the sort of darker side of things or sad, you can connect with people easier. It's harder to connect to people with happy songs.
Yeah, what is that about?
I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
I think it's because deep down, most of us are really questioning things.
Yeah.
No matter what your beliefs are, within us, we all have this fear that it's all for naught. And nobody really cares. And, we fear that people don't love us, or we fear death, and that death would be the end of everything.
Yeah.
And then what would that say? What does that mean for now? There's all this fear that is buried to different degrees within each of us, And by necessity, you have to kind of put that down there. So maybe you're made more vulnerable, when someone connects with that.
Yeah.
If someone exposes that a little, you recognize a piece of yourself in someone's music or in their art, you know.
Because I was wondering,
I don't know. Yeah.
Because I was wondering, why do I have to work so hard for joy and contentment.
Yeah.
But the opposite of that is really easy
Right.
to access and
Right.
stay in it and have it get worse.
Right. Yeah.
Like I have to be so conscious to not
Yeah.
be in that depression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's just our problem.
Yeah.
We're unfortunately predisposed to depression.
Yeah.
And that's where our mind wants to take us for whatever reason, maybe experiential reasons, maybe, maybe physical reasons, Yeah, but there's happy music that I listen to that I enjoy. I enjoy a lot of like early Duke Ellington stuff that just makes me so happy.
Yeah.
And it's a deep happiness too. It is just a gratefulness for life and for this man who made this incredible music and his band, and that exists and that recordings of it exist. Stuff like that, or there may be paintings that usually they're more abstract paintings, but the beauty of the work is such that it does give you a lot of happiness. So I can experience that in other people's work, but something about in music more often than not, I think what you're really affected by is the sadness. And that's why I think some of the songs that write about happiness in a way where it acknowledges sadness, there's sadness within it, It doesn't just, it's not a one-sided story, The songs, they mean a lot more. Obviously, they're more complex, but people can find themselves within them a bit more. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And what do the 5 songs of Grace Upon Grace, what is the themes among them? Why do these 5 songs together?
These songs exist because of, it's me trying to understand the appeal of this sort of authoritarian, fascistic, like Messiah, strongman figure, the political figure that is, in modern history, that people fall in love with and that they identify themselves with and that they look to as being their savior. Be it like, Adolf Hitler and Goebbels and all those awful fucking Nazis, be it, Joseph Stalin or even Lenin, be it Vladimir Putin, be it, what's his name, Erdogan over in Turkey, or be it someone who has tendencies like that, like Trump, for instance, which has brought out a lot of that in our country, recently, that nationalism, and that kind of blindness that people develop, where they kind of leave their judgment of character at the door and they treat the person unlike they would any other person in their lives. They excuse certain behaviors or certain things they would say because they think that person is on their side, that they represent us, usually to the exclusion of them. Yeah. There has to be a them for there to be an us. So it's the way they define that, as well. But how people become afraid and vulnerable to people like that. And then trying to understand to some degree those people themselves who want that kind of power, and see themselves as like it's providence that brought me to this position, it's God that brought me here, and the similarities in the way people look to like a monotheistic God, monotheistic religion rather, or like a Christ figure or something like this, those similarities are there, which primes people for it a little bit, I think. And where they're both looking for meaning, so where they overlap is interesting to me. But yes, so the current political climate led me to that.
Yeah.
And then dealing with family members who, may support Trump, which is just unbelievable to me, and trying to understand that. It's ruined at least one relationship in my own family.
Because you come from that background of what the Trump voter.
Yeah, I come from, and I understood it when he was rising. I was like, I come from rural Florida, white, like very white, but I don't want to say very white because some people come from much whiter areas than I came from. Like I had a very mixed high school. Like there was a lot of black kids in my high school. There was a lot of Mexican kids, a lot of immigrants at my high school. Those were kind of the dominant. It was like, and then there were some others. We weren't exposed as much to like anyone from the Middle East or hardly anyone who was even Asian. And then anyone Jewish was like not even, we had no conception at all beyond Seinfeld of what anyone who was Jewish was. It was such ignorance. We didn't realize that, the Jewish people, a lot of them like came down here to retire. Like they were just the snowbirds, but as children, we didn't really understand this. So I come from an area where people are not politically engaged and white working class, willfully ignorant and simple lives, it's about working hard and, like bootstraps and all that. And America. So I understood when he was, and the rednecks I would see at his rallies and stuff like that, and the racism and all that. I grew up around a lot of that, which was the big reason I wanted to get the hell away from where I am from. There's great people where I'm from. I met some people who, I cherish their friendship for life, and I will cherish their friendship for life. But there are a lot of really awful people as well, who made it just stifling, to live around that. Like the racism and the small-mindedness and the closed-mindedness, and the hatred of anyone different, it was always, I don't know, for whatever reason, it was always like really detestable to me, from as early as I can remember, like ostracizing people who were different or excluding people who were different and being different, you have to think about, well, what's being different from what? So you in a different situation, baseline. You could be the different person who was left out and, being blamed or
so in this situation, you're
being
the baseline.
Targeted. So it never made sense to me, how people could so easily fall into that kind of hatred for other people who they just didn't really want to try to understand at all.
Could you see where that came from, being that you look like those people? On the surface that you were like them?
I don't know. It's hard, because I can't speak from any other perspective than, as a white man. I'm a bisexual man, but I'm not identifiably bisexual. Most of the time, depends on what I wear.
Yeah.
Or who I'm eyeing on the subway or something.
Yeah.
Like I might have a day where maybe somebody, I might have a gayer looking day than others. But generally people just, they think that I pass as a straight white man. And I am a white man, and half of me or whatever, however you want to say it, is attracted to women. So part of me is straight, I guess. So that's how I grew up. I grew up with the majority in the area that I'm from. I didn't grow up as a minority.
Okay.
But I also felt like on the outside of things. I felt on the outside of things intellectually and emotionally, artistically, creatively. So maybe that, and feeling on the outside of things with my family too, since I had a very chaotic upbringing. Maybe that helped me. I don't know, to be, for those other things to be so like repugnant to me, I don't know. I don't want to talk like, it's it's hard to talk about this without sounding like self-aggrandizing
No,
in
no,
some way, like, oh, I understand every other
Well, I was
people's
asking
pain.
the question
But sometimes people ask me, they're like, Jason, how the hell, like, you talk about your family. I mean, my family, I don't want to talk badly about my family, but my early experiences with them there was just, a lot of things are very fucked up. All right. You know, I love them now. We have very good relationships, you know, largely. But that's taken a lot of time and therapy and like communication, mostly on my part to initiate. But they say, like, you know, you came from
the change you want to see.
Yeah. And accept that others are not going to change usually. But growing up like that, I'm losing my train of thought here.
I guess I asked the question because when we're in groups of just our own, and I'll put quotes around our own, we sometimes understand it even if we don't agree with it. Because there's things that say black people when there's no white people around. Say things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even if you don't agree with it, you still have an understanding of why.
You understand how they got there.
Yeah, just by being a part of that group.
To some degree, sometimes, but sometimes I think people are being, like I said, I use the term willfully ignorant, or being very uncreative, and you're not being very empathetic at all. And to me, empathy takes creativity. It takes imagination, right? You have to imagine being like in someone else's shoes or experiencing things as they might experience them, or where they might be from, or whatever, or what their day might have been like today, you know, to empathize with someone, or
so
what their family life might have been like, you know.
You don't have to really deal with that.
You don't have to empathize as much. Yeah.
You have the luxury of not having to empathize.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Which to me is... I mean, maybe it's a gift, you know, in some way to not have to empathize so deeply sometimes, you know, because I find that with creative people in general, you just, like, you have more of, like, that's where your imagination goes, you know, is to trying to understand other people outside yourself. Even if you are, like, sometimes, you know, just horribly... like, just your own existence can be horribly solipsistic. You know, I feel so trapped within myself. Yeah. But on the other hand, like, I feel like this, like, trying to grasp outside of that and, like, understand other people. Okay. You know, and sometimes it's just as hard to understand. I guess growing up, it was just as hard to understand the other white people from the same area that I was from as it would be to understanding, like, someone fighting in Saddam Hussein's army or something. You know, I grew up during the Desert Storm and all that shit. You know, like, it could be that, like, unfeasible. Like, how did they get to those places? And how did they stop there? Yeah.
Or it could be even more confusing to be a part of that and to not understand, like, how do you get to that?
Wait, what do you mean?
That they're just like you on the surface, and yet they've become that and you're not that, which I guess could be even more like feeling alone and not part of it. Yeah. Right. And then being a bisexual atheist. Yeah. Couldn't help.
Yeah, right? I guess not. Yeah. There was a point I wanted to make somewhere in there that I completely lost. But that's all right. I've had too much coffee today.
We went to a good place.
Having the opposite effect for some reason.
When did you realize you were bisexual?
That happened... It was a slow process, you know? It's so fucking crazy how much you can kind of hide from yourself, too. Yeah. Like, and how much you can not accept of yourself, you know? And you look back and then realize, like, those feelings you were having, and, like, the way you were looking at certain people, it wasn't just admiringly or whatever, you know? It was, like, erotically, you know? It was sexually. And for that, like, curtain to be pulled back is really... It's crazy that you can, like, trick yourself that much. Yeah. Because of societal pressure, you know, and the way you defined yourself within your own family's culture or whatever, you know, or where you grew up, you know, like having to have a certain amount of masculinity. Yeah. Like, and then for anything that is homosexual in any way, for that to be emasculating, you know, and emasculating, and to be feminine. I think that is what held me back a lot. because it wasn't just, oh, I like this. It was like, what does that say about me? Like, what does that make me? Does that make me like not a real man?
Okay.
You know, like
if I don't fit into
it's ridiculous, paradigm. Especially now, because I feel like even in the past fucking 10, 15 years, like even that, like society and culture has exploded so much with just like, I mean, we have a long way to go, but with acceptance of different kinds of people, you know, especially different sexualities and different ways of defining oneself, different genders, the rejection of gender. All of this is like in the conversation, like in the mainstream conversation, really.
In a way that it hasn't been.
Yeah, which is incredible. But if you think back, like, you know, just like 10, 15 years ago, like, these were still discussions that were only happening within those groups, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, you know, years ago when I was like 20, I think I was around 22 when I realized this about myself.
And I wonder, what is that like for you? Because, okay, you take like the atheism. Like, I've had guests who are atheists, and we talked about it. I've said to people, like, oh, I interviewed somebody, and we had a really great discussion about it. And people, like, sort of looked at me and equated, like, with Satanism, right? So it's like, in some ways, like, you're outside it with everybody. And then, like, bisexual, it's like, okay, well, gay people think this way, negative connotation. Straight people may think this connotation. So you're kind of like in this
It's important to realize that. Yes. Is that it's not just straight people who are giving you shit about being bisexual. And gay people might not even be giving you shit, really, but they may be kind of judging you. Yeah. In a way that is like, oh, you just don't know yourself, or you're just experimenting. Yeah. You know, or you're, you know, often from gay people, I've heard this from other people too, is that, you know, you're just not fully out of the closet. Yeah. You know, like, no, I still enjoy fucking women like a lot. You know, I just also happen to enjoy fucking men. Yeah, like,
you like the pole and the hole.
Yeah.
That's so from.
I'm genuinely enjoying this. Believe me. Like, I'm sorry. You know, that's just the way it is. Yeah, and a lot of, you know, increasingly people. There are more people out there who understand that bisexuality is a reality, and more people who realize that most people are not really like gay or straight. Yeah. There's probably an exception for most people somewhere with a certain person or a certain kind of person of the other sex or of the same sex that would pull them in another way. You know, it's like sexuality being on a spectrum. I very much believe that it is. And for me, within myself, it is. Like, I witness that spectrum happening with different kinds of people. And, you know, different men that I'm attracted to or different women that I'm attracted to. You know, like, I see my mind and my, you know, my sexuality, like, kind of almost like sliding in real time. Like, you can kind of feel it, you know. So, I think more and more people are understanding that, but still generally there is a lot of bias and misunderstanding about bisexuality. And also that we are supposed to be very unfaithful, which is completely untrue in my case because I have gone from long-term relationship to long-term relationship. In between, I may fuck around a lot, but very quickly finding myself in another long-term relationship that is monogamous and that is very faithful. See, I mean, that is faithful. That is just faithful. Yeah.
I was going to ask you something similar.
Yes.
Because I see
that is another stereotype that is that is given to
and you can correct me if this is an ignorant question.
No, go ahead.
I feel
I'm happy to answer.
Men and women are like apples and oranges.
Yeah.
So let's say you're in a relationship with an apple right now, a woman, right? Do you miss an orange?
I can't say that I do no more than someone who is in a relationship with, let's say, a man's in a relationship with a woman of a certain body type or a certain age or a certain personality, a certain ethnicity, whatever. And does he miss sleeping with different other women?
Okay.
Of course he does.
Yeah.
You know, this is just natural.
Mm-hmm.
And does she miss sleeping with different men, different kinds of men? You know, I mean, besides, it's harder to say when people have a very, like, a strict type. But even when you have a type, there's still variation within that type and different personalities, you know.
Yeah.
Like being with a different person. So everyone, you know, monogamy is a tricky thing, you know, and you want to be faithful to the person that you are in love with, and you do that, you know. It's like a sacrifice that you make for them, you know. So for me, it's like no more so than any of the guys I talk to who check out women, you know, like we'll check out women together, you know, if they're straight or whatever, and they are married or have girlfriends, you know.
But they're looking at other apples, or did I say? Yeah.
They are, but sometimes it's very different. I don't know. I have very broad taste, my friend.
There's like how many varieties of apples, right?
There are a lot of varieties.
So I just imagine, like, you know, if you're with a woman, and I guess I'm leading the witness, that if you're in a relationship with a woman, do you miss being with men?
Like I said, no more than I do being with other women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, like, you know, I'm sure when you're with someone, you know, the same thing, right? You're with someone, and if you're monogamous with them, you miss kind of some...
But I only like oranges, so...
I know, but are they all the same, really? Are dicks all the same?
No,
they're not. Are the people wielding them all the same? No. Are asses all the same? No. You know, when we get right down to it, and are people all the same? They're not, you know, even people who may look very similar, like their personalities and the kind of sex they want to have, or the way they carry themselves, or their intelligence, you know? That's all different as well.
Because you're falling in love with the person.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the package.
Yeah, well,
the
you
have
to like the package as well.
You have to like the ribbon.
You know? So you got to enjoy that, or at least, or be open to enjoying that. Yeah.
But the core is like the personality and who they are. And,
But like I said, just because you're attracted to other people doesn't mean it's any less stable than in my experience.
And that's the misconception that people have about
I said, oh, you must miss being with men. Like, no, like, sure, but do I miss being with different kinds of women? Sure.
Yeah.
But like I'm in love with a person. I'm in a long-term relationship now, the longest, healthiest one I've ever been in.
Yeah.
It's with a woman. She's amazing and is like this rock solid person who supports me and, like who I'm always happy to see at the end of the day. You know, this all sounds really cheesy. But I'm in a relationship with her, and we have agreed to have a monogamous relationship where we are only with each other, and we're more available to each other when we need each other, you know? Like some people have open relationships, and that's cool, and they can make that work, you know? But for me, I just find that's easier. It makes more sense for me to have a monogamous relationship. Yeah.
Okay. Fair
and
enough.
like we have self-control.
Yeah.
And you can always fantasize, listeners. You can always masturbate.
Yeah.
You can always do these things and explore those parts of, you know, your desires in a way that is not hurting someone else, you know.
Yeah.
Or if you want to have an open relationship, you know, and that works for the other party, sure. You know. But for me, it's like monogamous relationships. That's what works for me.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess I first found out about your bisexuality was you talked about it on Facebook.
Yeah, I talked. That was very scary for me. And it's so weird. It's such a dated thing to do. Like it will be very dated at some point. Like that's how I came out on this thing called Facebook. Yeah. What the hell is that?
Like the People Cover magazine.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm gay. Like, yep, I'm
yeah. It was. You know, I had a song out, Shifting Weight, where I say, my son is not a faggot, my son is not a queen. And it was about a father, you know, trying to come to terms with learning about his son, that his son was not straight. And I was performing that song, and I wanted to be able to talk honestly and openly to audience members and listeners about that, because I play a lot of small shows where I'm very accessible to people. So people come up and talk to me. And I didn't want them to I wanted to be able to talk about my sexuality and not just that, let them know that, oh, this is just coming from a straight guy.
Yeah.
Which maybe that could have worked too. I don't know. I don't know. I probably wouldn't have written the song if I was. I don't know if someone could make this song work in that way. Not just because it uses the word faggot, but just where it came from. It came from kind of my personal experiences. But I wanted to be able to talk honestly and openly about that. So I realized that the real holdback in my life was I was afraid of what my father would think. And I've talked to other men who are gay or bisexual about this, and that's been their same thing, sadly.
Yeah.
It's fucking really consistently sad that they're like, I didn't really care about anyone else. It was that it would get back to my father.
Okay.
And it's not the same for everyone. Some people, it's their mother, maybe, the person in their life, or their grandparent, maybe the parental figure who that would devastate them. But for a lot of people, it's their father. And it's them not being seen as a man, or being seen differently, or not respected, or not being seen as strong, things like this. So I wanted to be able to talk about those things and to be open about it. And I realized that that was what was holding me back. And I was about ready to kind of come out in some public way and maybe put it out there on social media. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't sure exactly.
Yeah.
Or if I was going to write my father a letter or something. And then the incident at Pulse happened in Orlando. The mass murder happened there. And that was just fucking devastating, because Orlando is somewhat close to where I'm from, in rural Florida. And I know these gay communities are very tight knit, especially in the more rural places and, southern places, people were drawn really close together.
That could be your lifeline.
Yeah. Even before I was out, when I was a kid, I used to go, when I was 16, I used to go to a coffee shop in Tampa with friends of mine. It was called Sacred Grounds, and we would go and hang out with mostly gay people, and a lot of artists and stuff too, but most of the crowd was gay. It was like a gay coffee shop. Yeah. And so I know, I knew I had a connection to that and an understanding of those kind of communities. And to learn about that was fucking so personally devastating to hear about. It made me really angry too. And I felt really privileged that I get to just live walking around and being bisexual and passing as straight. So I felt this was a privilege that I no longer want to allow myself. So I wrote something, about the Pulse incident and about myself on social media, and I wrote it publicly, and I was, friends with my father online, and he presumably saw it, and members of my family saw it and reached out to me. Those who didn't know, because it was kind of certain people knew about it, certain people didn't. And yeah, that's kind of how it came about. And my father and I haven't talked about it to this day, but we got into an argument messaging each other once about something political, and I, made sure that he knew. I kind of threw it out there in light of all the anti-gay shit and all the hate crimes that were coming out around Trump's rise and Trump's election. Yeah. I kind of threw that at him in a way. So, just to make sure. I know his stepdaughter knows, who's very close to him. I know other people in my family know, and he probably knows that this was me.
To hear it from you. Yeah.
Here it is, asshole, at that time. At that time. I love you, Dad. Yeah. At that time, I wanted to make sure that he knew. So just to finally, here, I'm saying it, and we haven't had to have a discussion about it, which makes me more comfortable. That's just where I'm at. But, he has been in a very loving place about it, and said, I love you no matter what. It doesn't make me think differently of you. And I was scared and frightened as shit for years,
Yeah.
And I'm still frightened that it does make him think differently of me.
Yeah.
Even though they say that to you, like
Yeah, you don't
sometimes
want
they want to say that to you because it's a comforting thing
Yeah.
to say. But in some way, whether he knows it or not, he may be looking at me differently, and that's hard, but you just have to kind of just move past it,
Do you, a year removed from that, has it been as freeing as you thought it would be, or?
It has, yeah. It was immediately freeing.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's so fucking crazy. Just walking down the street, it made me feel freer.
Okay.
And I'm not even walking down the street holding a man's hand, or, I'm not suddenly strutting down the street or flaming it up or something. But just because I was conscious of this, in the way that I would move or something, that around certain friends of mine, I would feel comfortable making a more effeminate gesture or something,
I can cross my leg with this person, but not this person.
Yeah, things like that. You know how that is, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy how we police ourselves like that. And also how you realize how simple these things are, that the way people define and look at things that are gay or things that are straight, certain things we do or gestures we use or ways we speak, and
how
things
those things are about they're effeminate, which leads to our belief
with
our
gayness.
negativity of women.
Yeah, of course, yes. It's all rooted in a hatred of women, which is really fucked up when you realize that. Yeah, that's why it's okay for, two women to make out if they are effeminate women.
Yes.
And if they are hot and it is at the service of, it is for a man, But if they are somewhat masculine women and they are making out, that's the weird flip side of this, then that is not okay.
No.
That is seen as repulsive, or someone who's transgendered or things like that, someone who's crossing the gender lines, especially going from man to woman. That is, I think that's the bigger insult to masculinity. Yeah. They see that as more of a threat and an insult. Yeah. It's more of a perversion to people. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And disgusting, and but also, I look at the ways as far as people who are transgendered and me being more aware of that and understanding more of that. That was something very outside my experience and outside my world, and being more and more comfortable with that. I had my own discomforts about that and around that, and the more that's been out in the open and we've talked about it, and more people have been more comfortable to come out, and just live their lives openly, it's just no fucking big deal anymore.
Yeah.
And within yourself, you don't feel that discomfort. You just feel, who gives a fuck? That's what's great about, living in New York. It's not perfect. There's still hate crimes that happen here and stuff.
Yeah. But over many other places.
It's much better than a lot of other places when it comes to just being different and passing by someone on the street and just being anonymous, It's very liberating, Yeah.
And what is it like now? I guess, shifting gears. How do you feel? You got the album coming out in October. What do you feel like?
I felt that moment of despair, what the fuck? Oh my God, it's done. What do I do now? What is this thing? I've listened to it so much. I'm so sick of it. I can't even look at it. When I say look at it, I mean listen to it, but sounds are very visual for me. So it's like an object for me. I'm done with this thing. It's like a dead object. And being divorced from the process of making it, now that it's done. I went through that, and I got on to, like I said earlier, starting the processes of thinking about new music, which has helped me to move on, and new research, which this one was heavily researched. So I was just in mountains of research for months, and way too much World War II Nazi history. My girlfriend was just, she can't hear another factoid about fucking like in any of that at all. Occasionally I'll try to pique her interest with like something a little more esoteric, like the degenerate art exhibitions that they would put on or something like this, and I'll try to get in there with her. And then I'll realize you didn't really want to hear that. She's like, yeah, I've had enough of it. So being able to get away from some of that horrible shit and move on is cleansing in a way. Even though I still find so much of that fascinating, and will continue to, and always have. The worst that people are capable of, you know, I can't help but gravitate towards that stuff, like towards the fucking Holocaust, and towards nuclear war, you know, the worst of the worst. That's where a lot of my interests lie.
Are you getting understanding of why?
But no, I don't think so. Okay. Here and there, but none of it is going to be that shocking to anyone, I think. Yeah. I think we already know why. It's because people are capable of anything.
Yeah. The kindest act, or the most
the most vile. Yes. But I've developed like a great love of history through writing songs over the past few albums, which started with a little research here and there on certain people, for certain songs. And through writing those songs, I've developed this love of history that I didn't really have. I had different interests as far as like World War II, you know, or certain like biblical times, stuff like that, you know. But a broad interest in history all over the world, of world history, and American history too, and American politics, and it's just blossomed through writing songs, through this research that I've done, which has been great to like, it's really cool to develop kind of a new interest for yourself, you know, because I'm someone who doesn't try new things very often at all. I stick in my rut, you know, and musically I may try different things, but as far as my life and my interests go, it's,
now you have this new interest.
People
and
know
there's endless.
Like, I have things that I don't like doing things in groups. I don't like festivals. I don't like parades, you know, stuff like this. So I have certain aversions that I know that I don't like that, so I'm not going to try it. But developing a new love of history has been great. So that has helped me to fill in some of the time between projects. It helped me between albums last time too. So I'm in a place now where I have new research that I'm doing, which is fascinating to me, and I'm at the beginnings of. Like I mentioned earlier, it's biblical stuff. Also, the Civil War, which is, you know, become
relevant.
It's become relevant again for some.
Oddly,
For some reason, these things are relevant again. All of these awful things are relevant. The world is bringing out Nazism, nuclear war now with North Korea, and the Confederacy. All these terrible things that I gravitate towards, just, you know, wanting to know about historically, are unfortunately very relevant for the world we live in right now. Who would have thought? But they are. So right now I'm in a place where I'm doing that research, you know, but I'm also finding ways to play the songs from Grace Upon Grace live. One of them, the single Backbone, I have played live a few times, so I have some ways of playing it. I have one way of playing it where I sample part of a Sade song, which is really fun to do. It's really great.
I love when you sample Destiny's Child.
Oh, thank you. That was really fun to do. And I'll do that here and there in the future with certain things. But usually it's very abstract and nobody can tell what the song is. the Destiny's Child sample was a little more obvious. And I only use these samples in performance. I'm not saying that for legal reasons, just for like, it's an interesting thing for me to do, to use a tape and to sample a tape recorder with a microphone, you know, on the tape recorder speaker, and to manipulate those sounds in real time.
Yeah.
As far as using that on a record, that's not interesting to me because I would rather make a whole new sound, which I can do more methodically, you know, on a recording than I can in live performance. Right. So, you know, using those tapes in real time, it adds to the sort of everything can fall apartness of the situation, you know, the excitement of that situation. It's going to be different each time, even though I'm using a tape recording, but I'm sampling that at a different moment in time in a different way with a different proximity of the microphone.
Dangerous of what could happen.
Yeah, and it's of the moment. It's, you know, it's very much there in time. So right now I'm working on finding ways to play some of the other songs on the album. I've learned that I don't have to know how to play every song live because I'm not going to want to play every song live. But I've learned to find the songs that will work live or that I want to play live and find some way to make them work that sustains the piece, that it's, you know, nothing essential is lost. And that the song may transform a little or be a little more stripped down or be a little mutated, but it's still the same song live. So right now I'm working on that. I have an album release show on October 4th at Come On Everybody, where I will be playing hopefully nothing but songs from Grace Upon Grace,
which is
with
October
or without
5th.
a saxophonist or two with me. Yes, the album is out. That's the release party, but the album comes out the next day, which is 10/5.
Joint release with Floordoor Records.
It is,
your Floordoor Records.
yes, my label Floordoor Records that I run with some friends, and the record label Already Dead Tapes and Records.
Great label.
They're a great label. They're putting out the tape. And we're putting out the CD. We're kind of doing them both together to some degree. So I'm very excited to share that with people.
And a short story. Talk about this.
Yes. So the short story, I also wanted to say that the record is five vocal songs, and then there are 5 instrumental versions of those songs. And part of that reason was just by nature of the tape, because I knew it was going to be a tape release before we added the CD, to having a side to the record and what would go on the other side. And I was trying to and I enjoy instrumental music. I like making instrumental music. I was listening to these songs as instrumentals for a long time before I got the lyrics down, you know, so they worked for me as instrumentals. I started questioning whether I should write vocals for them. So I wanted to share them in that way. And also to have sort of 2 sides of the record and 2 ways of looking at it. One with lyrical content and one without any content at all. One with just abstract sound, you know, and one can find the meaning they will within that. And in the end, the title as well, it had these resonances with the Bible, with the 10 Commandments, with the first 5 of which, I believe it's the first 5 are man's relation to God, the second 5 man's relation to man. So I thought that was quite interesting, the number 5 and how that works, since I was doing a lot of biblical reading, you know. And the term grace upon grace coming from the Bible as well. Grace signifying 5 in the Bible, the 5 wounds of Christ, also the 5 offerings. So there are reasons for the things I do. Sometimes there are too many reasons for them.
Beautiful reason, dude. Yes. I like that.
But so when I decided that it was going to be a tape release, I was trying to find a way to make the object interesting. It's like, well, if it's not going to be a vinyl release, it's going to be a tape release. How can I make this tape special? You know, I'm mailing it to people. That's how they're getting it for the most part. How is this going to be a special thing? So I started thinking about packaging and this and that. And then I thought, well, like, really, I have someone's address. So, and I thought of the simplicity of that. And I can send them something that's not a tape. I can just send them a postcard. And then I thought, well, I can send them a letter. So I thought about me then having that like personal information that is someone's address. Like I have this, so I can write a letter to them. So I started thinking about whether I wanted to write a personal letter to that listener. You know, sometimes I know the listener, sometimes I don't. Yeah. You know, and the personal information that's online about them, I thought about, you know, going down that road perhaps. And in the end, I went more with a short story format. So they will receive a series of letters from me, which are single-page chapters of a 5-part short story, which is called PS, as in it's a postscript to the record in some way. It's thematically related to the record, but not directly insofar as you have to listen to the songs as, you know, in a way where you're looking for things that are in the songs that are in the stories and vice versa. There are some things that are directly related, but largely they're not. It's just thematically so. And the story is very informed by a particular story in the Bible, which I won't give away here, and by some of the writings of Soren Kierkegaard, and also the political historical figures I've talked about in this podcast. And it is told from the second person, the present. So it's you. It's told from you. So you will receive something in the mail that is written as you. So you will be reading, you do this, you hear this, you experience this. So I wanted it to be very kind of almost violating your privacy in a way that is still it's about a fictional character, but you are experiencing that character yourself. So that is the short story that will accompany the release. If you buy it online, you can buy it digital and, you know, include your address and you will receive those short stories. Or there's an option to buy the CD, which will come with the short stories. The tape will come with the short stories as well. You'll receive them on a weekly basis, one a week, in 5 chapters that will tell a story to you.
It's great.
Yes, and it won't be a letter from your mother or from a bill collector. It'll just be a letter to you. And how often do you get that? You know, so I thought that was something.
Look forward to going to your box.
Something special that I could kind of like give someone else. You know, something I would like to receive something like that. You know,
excellent, dude. Yeah. And best place for people to keep up with you online, get the album.
As far as getting the album, it's my Bandcamp page. publicspeaking.bandcamp.com is the best place to go for that. As far as getting up-to-date information about me, it's following me on Instagram or Facebook. On Instagram, it's public 2_ speaking. Public _ speaking. One can follow me there, and usually I increasingly use Instagram instead of Facebook because of just the drudgery that is, you know, the political just trash heap and the fucking seeing, you know, the demagogue in chief there, you know, his fucking face all the time and all that. You're exposed to those things less so on Instagram so far, at least, even though it comes up here and there. But one can follow me on Facebook as well and get those things. But Instagram seems to be the better place to just put those things out there and then get away and then run and hide. I read the newspaper every week, but I don't want to be just fucking drowning in the you know, your what is it called? Your wall? What do we call it? I haven't been using Facebook much at all now, and I've forgotten.
Is it wall?
Yeah, but that's your wall. But then what is it? Your stream?
Okay, your stream, your public stream, or
where is it?
I don't know.
Neither
is it wall? I think it's wall.
No, I don't think it's wall.
Or your stream?
I don't think it's stream either.
Really?
God, we are really out of touch here.
People will know. and write in.
Yeah, run and hide from that is what I advise everyone. Yeah. Talk to your friends, text your friends, spend that time texting. That's what I've tried to do, is getting away from that and, call your friends, people. Text your friends instead.
Okay, sounds good, dude. Thank you for doing this, Jason. This was wonderful.
Hey, thank you so much, boys.
It's
enjoyed
been
this
a real
thoroughly. Pleasure. Thank you.
And I appreciate your candor and
my pleasure.
Intelligence.
I hope I didn't rattle on too far.
Your music gifts. It's a great album.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks.
We need someone strong, need a backbone. Why get it wrong? We need a backbone. When the world is clear, need a hand of stone. Need a backbone. We need a backbone. He's a man of his own. Put him on that throne. This one looks like he really belongs. We need a backbone. Wrapped up in the flag, carrying a cross and a megaphone. We sing the same song. We need a backbone. They all agree with me. Just look at my news feed. Inside my phone, we need a backbone. I've tried to explain the weapons I need to borrow to investigate this thing. I may not be back She's on the move, a grandmother in a man's suit. Have you heard the way she talks about you? Another woman trying to tell us what to do. No matter what I say, they're gonna take it wrong. Unashamed and unknown. We need a backbone. I've tried to explain the weapons I need to borrow to investigate this thing. But if we can't agree, I've got 3 bullets for you and 1 for me. And then my daughter raised up from my crying wife and son. She said, Daddy, we were wrong. We need a backbone. Do you remember tipping your hat, smiling at strangers? How do we get that world back? Whistling through the park, strolling safely after dark. People knew their place. Let's build a highway to the past, learning to drive again, going backwards. We'll have the entire world recast, every object and every I'm not afraid, just give me the wheel. Only I can get us out of here. For blood and soil, sacrifice and loyalty. I'm like you and you're like me, united by our enemy. Just keep them when no one can see. Let's build a highway to the past, learning to drive again, going backwards. We'll have the entire world recast, every object and every
And you just heard music from Public Speaking, Jason Anthony Harris. You heard Trespass with Sophie Chernin, and kicking off the music, Backbone. Both are from Grace Upon Grace, out October 5th. Pre-order now at publicspeaking.bandcamp.com. And the New York release party the night before, October 4th. Come on, everybody, in Brooklyn. I'm online. Couple of places, talkmusictalk.com for podcast information and to stream every episode. I am also on Instagram at This Is Boys, so follow me there. Couple of call to actions for you. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on social media or email it to a friend or leave a 5-star rating and or review wherever you are listening, especially on iTunes, because this all helps to grow the Talk Music Talk audience. Also, you can download the Talk Music Talk app. It is free for iPhone and Android, wherever you like to get your apps, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, pretty much everywhere else. Just search for Talk Music Talk. You can also find the podcast on SoundCloud, starting with episode 100 with Carlos D. Carlos Dangler, former bassist of the band Interpol. That's episode 100 on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/This Is Boys. Thank you so much for listening to the Big 150 episode. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jason Anthony Harris, Public Speaking, him and his music. Till next time, and there will be a next time. This one's for you, Liz.